Welcome back everybody to Rikers Island ICND2 training course. In this section, we're going to be taking a look at the WAN, or Wide Area Network technologies. Now these technologies are going to be a vast amount of detail we're going to be covering, and I've broken it down into subsections so that you guys will be able to plan this out as we're going along. So basically what you're going to end up getting as we go forward here is we're going to start off with PPP and multi-link PPP and some of the variations of that, like authentication and taking a look at the back-end details of that. Then we'll focus on Pppoe, and that's going to be another specific section where Pppoe is typically related to DSL. We'll focus on that and see exactly how that operates. Pppoe is actually relatively easy to work with. The configuration is a little, if you've never dealt with it before, it can be a little convoluted, but it definitely does get the job done. We're going to focus on WAN topologies, and we're going to focus on the different types of WAN topologies, like point-to-point, point-to-multipoint, multi-access, things like that, how those come into play. And that'll actually feed into our WAN access portion, where we're going to focus on things like, what are the different WAN access types? How do I connect to the WAN? Basically breaking down how the WAN works and things like that. We'll focus on doing a Mpls workflow, because as you get into CCNP and beyond, Mpls, whether you want to learn it or not, is going to be one of those technologies that you're likely going to leverage from a provider for business critical types of applications. So knowing how Mpls works is definitely going to be a benefit to you, and that's why I'm going to cover it here like high level and get into the details of things more further down the road. That's also going to include the different types of access you can get through Mpls. Why would you use Mpls versus something like frame relay or ATM and stuff like that. Then we'll focus on Internet VPN. How does Internet VPN come into play and stuff like that. We'll see exactly where Internet VPN fits into the scope of things. And then we'll take a look at BGP. BGP is going to be a very vanilla configuration. I'm going to be doing a lot of repetitive basic configuration, getting connectivity up and running. And one of the goals with the BGP portion of it is we want to focus on once BGP is in place, then we'll be able to start getting the remote sites to be able to talk to each other. And that's really important because in the long run, whether you're using a dedicated WAN provider, like let's say you're paying for MPLS service for your business critical applications, or whether you're just using Internet VPN, I personally it doesn't matter to me which way you go. One way or the other. I've worked with very large enterprises and they run just straight up IPsec VPN tunnels. I've also worked with other Fortune 500 companies where they use MPLS and other stuff like that to get the job done. Whichever way you go is up to you. We're going to focus on getting BGP and getting some routes advertised and stuff like that so that our remote sites can talk to each other. Now, once we have that in place, that is going to be the underpinning, or what they commonly refer to as the underlay. The underlay is going to be all of your physical connectivity, your transport, getting you from where you are to where you want to go in the physical world. Now, granted, we're in a virtual lab, so it really doesn't make much. The actual the main components of it don't matter. So we'll get BGP running, we'll have reachability, then GRE and Dmvpn will come in later on. We'll take a look at actually configuring a Gre tunnel and then advertising routes over that. We'll then take a look at configuring a single hub Dmvpn. It'll be as vanilla as it can possibly be. I'm not doing anything fancy with it. It'll be phase 1 Dmvpn, nothing fancy at all. Once we get through Dmvpn, then we're going to take a look at IPsec. I'm actually going to walk you through how IPsec works and actually getting through and configuring it. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because it's a WAN technology. It's important to cover it. And I know this is not CCNA security, but we're not really focusing hardcore on the cryptography. We're not trying to do device hardening. That'll come in CCNA security when we get to the security track. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is because I want you guys to have, regardless of where you fit into your organization, if you do knock work or you're an engineer, whatever job role you happen to fill, at least having the understanding of what it is you're looking at might play a pivotal role. And I'll break the things down to you guys so that it'll make a lot more sense. It was beneficial to me when I first started learning it, because I could tell you 5 years ago, when I first started getting into engineering, I was a low-level engineer at a small company. I didn't know what BGP was. I didn't know what GRE was. I didn't know what IPsec was. I think I had CCNA at the time, and it was one of those things where it was another engineer that, you know, me and him got along, and he showed me stuff. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten the understanding that I do. So I owe a lot to him, and he knows that. We're still friends to this day. But it really comes down to understanding what it is that, what technologies fit in what areas. And so covering the technologies is going to be, I think, is going to be beneficial to you guys. There's going to be a lab that goes along with it in the workbook, so you guys can go ahead and, practice it and see exactly what it is that we're going to be talking about. But at the end of the day, that's what it really boils down to, making sure that you understand what it is you're looking at. Because if you see something in the configuration and you have no idea what it is, if you're like me, I go Google it. Okay, what does this command do? Why is this command here? And the reason why I do that is so that I have a base understanding as to what it is that I'm looking at. Now, obviously, if it's something like voice over IP and you've got, say, SIP to H323, things like that, I don't get into the voice thing too often. I mentioned in a previous video in this course that I'm looking at doing some collaboration things. And the reason for that is because I want to broaden my skill sets a little bit rather than just being a route switch and service provider engineer. I like doing security and voice and maybe a little bit of wireless here and there. I plan on doing some design stuff. Rikers Island is going to grow, and you guys are going to there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming out in the future. It's just going to take some time for that material to be developed and released. So I'm focusing on the areas of technologies that I'm already familiar with. Routing and switching happens to be a very popular track. So that's what you guys can expect to see as you move forward here in the WAN technology section. And we're going to cover these. And the cool thing about all these individual technologies isn't the fact that, they're all cool to work with, they're interesting to see how they operate. It's not so much just that. What it really comes down to is, once they're deployed, it's going to, the goal is to be able to highlight what technology you would use in what area and the use case or the business driver that you would use to say, I'm going to choose technology A over technology B. That's what I really want to kind of drive home here, because some of the stuff is not on the blueprint. Like Dmvpn is not on the blueprint. Gre tunneling is, but Dmvpn is not. But because of the fact that Dmvpn is such a popular protocol, or I should say a popular technique, because that's really what it is. It's a routing technique, not a routing protocol. A lot of people run it, and especially if you're involved in any of the cutting-edge software-defined WAN, which we'll cover towards the end of the course when we get into SDN, you may have heard the term IWAN or intelligent WAN, or you've got all these SD-WAN or SDN providers that are out there. They have different solutions and whatnot. So Dmvpn, from the Cisco side of the house, is going to be the routing technique that is used to provide the internet overlay tunneling that you need to have in place. So at least having a general understanding of what Dmvpn is and how it works, that's going to come in handy. And that's why I'm going to be doing a very basic demonstration just so you guys can see how it works. And I'm hoping that, that'll spark some interest and that'll carry some weight with you guys. And additionally, when we get into CCNP, it's going to expand into more complicated designs and single hub, dual hub, and how you could fail over between them. And then CCIE, we're going to rip Dmvpn apart. And we're going to play with all the different features and bells and whistles and stuff like that and see what the options are. So everything that you're learning from CCNA is going to be consider that to be the first layer or two of the foundation that you need, or building the foundation. And then the first story is going to be really, your CCNP, and then the second and third story, and then finally your attic is going to be CCIE. That's where we start building, we start filling in the gaps, and we start doing the landscaping and then the trim work, and putting in all the cool bells and whistles, your HD TV, and your high-speed internet, and your really kick butt home lab that you want to have in your basement like I do. These are going to be things that you're going to fill in, and you'll see how this comes into play. You'll see all these advanced capabilities come out, and you're going to be like, wow, okay, cool. At least that's my goal. My goal is to wow you guys, and that's what I hope to do. So with that being said, this is what you can expect in this section. We're going to dig right into PPP in the next video and take a look at exactly how that's going. Now, if you didn't catch it in one of the previous videos, I did mention that my viral lab crashed, so I ended up having to rebuild it. And in the process of rebuilding it, I ended up integrating some things into GNS3. So I've got a couple of routers that are running in GNS3. They're the 7200 routers. And I've got some serial connections set up with them so you guys can see how PPP works. And then Pppoe once we get that stuff situated. And that's going to allow us to connect in. You'll see how I break that down here in the next video when we actually get into the nitty-gritty details of how PPP works. But until next time, guys, you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much for your time and your patience and your attention. Until next time, guys, take it easy.